Warning, the
Start.
Hot Nerd Network contains adult content. This podcast or video podcast contains adult language, and we will be discussing adult topics.
Welcome to Hot Nerd Network, the ultimate destination where we celebrate diverse personalities from world fantasy ones. I'm your host of the first word, Philip, a fun show that covers many shows and movies. So, welcome to the first word. I'm Philip. With me
I'm
today,
Philip.
I got
Yeah, yeah.
my got my dad. Go ahead, Pop.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm your co-host,
Anyway, I got
Philip
my
Philip
sister.
Senior. I'm glad to be here with my family, and thanks a lot for allowing me to be your co-host.
Cool, 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 cool. Also, I have my hot nerd mom. Mom, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Hi, I'm Cheryl Parker. I'm the mom and the wife and the guest
Okay.
speaker. I'm the
Cool,
guest
cool,
host.
cool,
Yeah.
cool. Cool, 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 cool. And last but not least, we have Miss Hot Nerd Network herself, my lovely sister. Sydney, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Hot Nerd Sid. I'm really excited to be here with the Parker gang. And
Yay!
I'm very much giving Barbieheimer right now, but excited to excited to talk everything Oppenheimer today with the fam.
So last night, the Parkers, we all went to go see Oppenheimer last night. Christopher Nolan's 2023 blockbuster hit. Um, we had a good time. We have a running joke that usually the movies isn't the Parker's best friend, but we had a great time last night, and I think the actual film itself was icing on the cake. So
Yes.
where we're going to start the first word at today is we want to why you all like Christopher Nolan films. Like, what do you like of his films?
So why I like
Yes.
Christopher Nolan? Christopher Nolan to me is a guy who, when he makes a movie, he makes you think. There's a lot of subplots that's going on, and in the Christopher Nolan movies, it's not spoon fed to you. So, and actually, sometimes you watch it like 2, 3, 10 times, and you still find little nuggets that he was still to make his point. He kind of layered into this movie, so that's why I like Christopher Nolan.
Gotcha. And Sid, you grew up in a household full of Nolan fans. So
Yeah.
tell me, how do you enjoy Christopher Nolan films, or what do you enjoy most about his films?
Yeah, I think that the best part about Christopher Nolan films is that he really is very intentional about taking you into a new world. Like and he does that without it being
Mm.
usually. I've never seen him do anything fantasy like, which is a whole new world. But instead, it's really putting you into the world of his characters. That's for one, and it just feels like a fully immersive experience. Two is that the character studies that he's doing throughout all of his movies are incredible. I mean, Batman was the first place that I got introduced to Christopher Nolan, and personally for me, outside of the Batman the animated series we used to watch like together, that was the first time I ever saw like a live action Batman, and I really felt like I understood Batman through his lens, and he continues to do that throughout all of his main characters, and so and I just absolutely love that he reuses the same actors but also introduces new ones. So I mean, yeah, really cool concepts like Daddy said, really, really immersive and character driven storytelling is why I like Christopher Nolan.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And mom, so you actually little nut, my mom actually gave me my money. I went on my first date as a teenager. My mom gave me my money to take my first date out to go see my first Christopher Nolan film, which was Batman. So just a real cool fact. Um, my dad, I was on punishment, and my dad didn't want me to go to see the movie. So my
Really,
mom actually
we going
gave
there.
me
Really,
It's the
money.
culture.
really. Is
My
that was
mom
his?
gave me money to go see my first Christopher Nolan film. So I gotta give her a shout out and kudos to that. So, Mom, with that being said, why do you like Christopher Nolan films? What do you like about films?
So I'm probably the least the biggest big Christopher Nolan fan in this group. I like his movies. I've been entertained over the years, but it's, as you all know, it's been difficult for me to. I have to watch him like 3 or 4 times to really kind of grasp all of the nuggets and
As everybody.
his thought process. Yeah, but I would say that I love the emotion that comes from my family from the Christopher Nolan movies. When I went with your dad to see Interstellar, and I saw him crying in the movie, I was like, "Oh my!" Daddy was crying. That music touched him. I'm hanging it out there. Daddy cried because it's that daughter-daddy relationship. So no, and that was kind of special, just to kind of see. I think he has an art in being able to pull out the emotion and being able to have people really connect with what he is trying to say. And I definitely got that last night in seeing Oppenheimer. I really connected with history that I really didn't know much about. I mean, I can be honest about that. I mean, I knew the bomb, but just seeing the whole concept of how that came about and the emotions of how it affected everyone. He has an art in doing that. So that's where I get joy and understanding and seeing his movies.
So that's an interesting point because the three of us said, and we are huge for Nolan fans. So you actually watching this movie can be objective that's not particularly well versed in the Christopher Nolan lore. So it's going to be interesting to see and get your feedback from your eye on how he portrayed this movie, not only this movie, but his other movies, because you've seen his other movies, correct, Mom?
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of his movies. I'm sorry, I've seen movies where I thought
so
she would have mentioned one of them, but she didn't. I thought it was odd. It was one of our favorites together. She didn't mention it, but I'll save that for later.
It'll be interesting to get your take, not only as we talk about it, because it's some of the things that we went over last night. We all saw that. It'll be interesting to get your viewpoint on. So just quickly moving on. What I want to do now is I want to get your thought how this film resonates to present day. I already know how nuclear warfare is a huge topic. Not only is it a topic of now, but and I'm sorry, it was a topic then, but it's still socially relevant to this day. Let's go to Sydney first. Sydney, how does this film impact you to this present day? Because this one took place in the 40s/50s. Yeah. So how does film resonate with you to this day, currently present day?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that I'm not a huge, really big into the sciences. So I don't think that of course, I knew that the atomic bomb was a very science matter, but I don't think I really understood how, let me break that back. I knew that the atomic bomb and nuclear warfare is a very political matter, but this movie really introduced me to the science of it and how the science and the politics really mix and how they can really just be on opposite ends of it. From this movie, I got the perspective that Oppenheimer himself, it wasn't like he was the father of the atomic bomb. He really wanted the atomic bomb to be used to kill people. It was more so he was very intrigued by the science of it all and what it took to make something like that. It was just the next innovation. And I didn't realize that actually it was such a poignant message at the end that, even though he made this very deadly thing, he was very much an advocate of peace. So in community. So I feel like that is a very good metaphor towards just technology in general right now, because we talk about, even with things like AI and things like Atomic bombs, drones is a whole other topic. But I mean, even drones, let's talk about drones. All of these things could be used like for deadly measures, but they're also very much innovative pieces of technology that is pushing humanity forward. So any tool can be used for harm, but it still doesn't take away from it doesn't take from how incredibly important it is for pushing humanity forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. You touched on something I want to get, and actually, I want to get that from. So, Pop,
Yeah.
in the film, Nolan used both black and white. He used black and white profiles along with color profiles to dignify real life events to be chronicled, that you could be researched, that actually happened. Whereas the color aspect of the film was kind of, it was not, that wasn't as authentic. It was more of his own coming out in the film and imprinting his own into the film. So explain how this, in the moment, mind you, you're getting the historical aspect of it, but that passion that he brought into color aspect, just bring us, how did that feel to you?
Well, of course, it was purposeful. To me, he added that aspect to the show for the, like you said, for the contrast. And if you, unfortunately, in this day and age of spoilers, when you're trying to, in researching the movie, and get prepared for this podcast, you hear little anecdotes out there about the movie. So I tried to push those things away and immerse myself in the nuance and the freshness of seeing the movie. But that one kind of slipped through the cracks. And so I kind of expected a little bit. But in actually seeing it, one of the things that I really liked, it brought attention to the contrast. And different times there was different contrasts for, especially the character Robert Downey Jr. played. It brought, to me, black and white focuses in more on what is being said opposed to what is being seen, especially when you have both, like a movie, because I wouldn't say distracted, but color in your mind, to me, your mind is processing all the color and all the nuances and all that kind of stuff. But black and white is just that, black and white. So it kind of, for me, it focused me more on what was being said. And then again, like you said, when we switched to color, then I was immersed with the visual along with all the all the audio too. So I hope did that answer your question. So to me, I like the black and white because, like you said, it focused me on, especially the Senate hearing. And this day and age, it seems like the Senate is more of a show, but it seems like back then, I guess always the Senate and the Congress has always been a show. We just see more of it on television.
Sure.
That's a good point, and that actually just ways perfect. Mom, what I wanted to ask you is so Christopher Nolan, especially in the films like you said, Interstellar, and my personal favorite, Inception. Christopher Nolan is very well versed and very good at world building. So we're not just staying in one particular region of the world. We're going into the States. We're going into Russia. We're going into Germany. We're going into France. But he all of that accumulates all into one film in a 3-hour period. So from you not being well versed into the Nolan lore, as we like to call it, how did his world building affect you in this film? How did it make you feel to be able to not only get this true story in the moment, but to open your eyes to different regions historically in 2000. So again, we're going back into the 40s and the 50s, but here it is 2023, and he opens the world to you in this point. How did that resonate with throughout this film?
So I think that resonates in every film. Although I definitely spoke to the fact that I'm probably the least knowledgeable, but as I think about it, probably because of you all, I've seen almost all of his films. I think the only film I haven't seen is Dunkirk, and so I think from the world building perspective, he does that in every film. And so I felt like in this film, though, it was about the history of him kind of taking us around the world of the history of science, of how Oppenheimer pulling all of these scientists from all these different regions and actually persuading them to come help the U.S. Because, you know, these scientists could have gone and helped anyone. They could have gone to Germany, they could have gone to Russia, but he was able to persuade them to come help the U.S. And in doing that, we were able to see how, you know, you often hear, we as American citizens, we're pretty cocky. I think, you know, like we're the best, right? We know everything. We can do everything. Right. We're the end all to be all, right? But in learning from this movie is that we have to build upon all of the talent. Because if you think about the talent that was brought in from those scientists, they weren't from America. You know, a lot of the people who brought in some of the key parts of that bomb were not from America, but they came and they helped America build something. And so I think the concept of him kind of bringing that to light, of making sure that we had a clear picture that it was the world that built this bomb, but it was the Americans who actually took it, finessed it, and used it first. So that was my picture from the world building perspective. I hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely. And real quick, I know for me, one aspect that just blew my mind that was very significant about this film are visuals. So you hear what a regular bomb, or we've seen what a regular bomb could do. We've seen what an atomic bomb can do, but these bombs that Oppenheimer and all the scientists have developed over the years, to actually see the physical devastation, to see the after effects, to have a visual to attach that to, it just set a whole new precedent to how this newer generation will feel about war. Because what's scary is the fact that not only do Americans have this technology, or not only do Russians have this technology, but the world does. And I thought a huge phrase that I took from the film was that mankind has created, as humans have created a way to destroy ourselves. And at the end of the film, where he's sitting there, reminiscing about, his choices, and you see different nuclear warheads going off, and they have somewhere, that is a very distinct possibility that Nolan just smacks you in the face with. So actually, I'm going to do Dad on this one. Pop, how does it feel when you saw that Oppenheimer, the government approached him about making this bomb? How did you feel as a connection of your family? You have a task that the government asked you to do, but Oppenheimer uprooted his family from him to a remote location to get this done. As a father, as a husband, how does that resonate with you to make those tough choices in a very quick, time span?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, he was a patriot, and when it's kind of tough, especially he was a New York boy. It's kind of tough when the government puts something out there. Well, let's back up. It was more than just he's a patriot. So let's remember the chronology was Hitler had developed, or Germany had developed, the first steps of atomic bombs. They start setting off stuff, and America was woefully underprepared. So we had this whiz kid who's American, and he's like, the government comes to you and say, look, you know we're not ready, but we also know what Germany will do with this technology. To me, it wasn't a hard choice. You know, he saw what Germany was doing to Jews in Germany and around, and what they have said they were going to do. You know what my Aunt Angela said: when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. You know,
Yeah.
told the world exactly what he was going to do, and so and to answer your question, to me, it wouldn't have been a difficult decision because. And it wasn't for him. You know, I can come to mom. Mom's the type of wife, and I can say, "Hey, babe, the government's coming to me. We got to do this. Boom, 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 yada, yada, yada." Mom's the type of mother's like, "Let's go. let's do it," because we are patriots. You know, we love this country. We believe in this country. We believe warts and all. And so that wasn't, as a father, I would make that decision 10 out of 10 times to do it, because the other side of that coin is we know what, like I said, Hitler said exactly what he would do if he was the first one to develop this technology.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought that not only was his decision hard, because if you don't create this bomb before the Germans do, then it could usher a whole new civilization, a whole new way of how the world is today. But I want to go back to Mom real quick. Mom, Oppenheimer's wife was very integral in her part on how his character developed over the film, because not only did she see how the government was going to eat him up and chew him out, but the people he has surrounded himself with, she tried to warn him, hey, they're only using you for what you can do for them. What you can't do for them anymore, and you're useless to them. Could you just speak on, did you relate to that aspect of Oppenheimer's wife being able to not only see it in the moment, but voice that to her husband, even though it might not be the news he wanted to hear in the current time?
Yeah, I actually really did relate to that. I thought Emily Blunt did an incredible job in her performance.
Yes.
I was like, wow. You know, she's already an incredible actress, but she did it last night. She did it in that film. But as a wife, I think any wife, when you're married and you're truly committed to your husband and your family, you are always going to be honest. Honesty is the most key thing in any relationship. And you wouldn't be fair to each other in a relationship if you weren't honest and true and said things up front of what you really felt, especially if you were passionate about that, protecting them. I love that scene in the end when the scientist, I can't remember his name, Teller, or the scientist who comes up to her at the White House, and he goes to shake her hand. She's like, nah, dude, I still don't like you. You messed over my husband. Because, she was protective of him, even though, he had his faults, he had the affairs and so forth. But I think they both had their faults, but they were committed to each other. And she stood by him, and she's like, I'm going to tell you how it is, and I'm just going to beg you to fight for yourself. And he wasn't always very good about fighting for himself, but even though he didn't fight for himself, she still was by him. She still stood by him. So
absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can I add something? One of the things I like about, again, at the end of the movie, is when she's, my children know, you guys know that my wife speaks truth to me. And, at the end of the day, when you close the door, she's like, okay, do you want me to be your friend, or do you want me to be your wife and pat you up? Which one do you want? And I was like, well, be my friend. Tell me like it is. And the wife
Absolutely.
said, you think by taking all this suffering and all this grief and all this flack that they gave you, that it's going to somehow absolve you of what you built? Then you're fooling yourself. That right there is a true friend. That's a friend that tells
Yes.
you, I could pat you up and say, oh, baby, boo boo, you're going to be okay. But she's like, nah, bro. What you built, when they used you, and two, the genie's out of the bottle, accept it for what it is. But you take in the slings and arrows of all these people, these haters, is not going to absolve you of what happened. So I like that about her too.
I want to tap in there personally because I thought that was such a metaphor for his personal character development throughout the entire film. Specifically, sorry, that wasn't the metaphor. Gene's death when that happened was the metaphor because it's like Oppenheimer, he would like make a decision, the one that he would stand by it in that moment. But then once he saw, specifically with Gene, he said, I have to leave. I can't be back and forth with you, especially not only because I have a wife, but because you're part of the Communist Party is going to mess up my project that I'm working on. So he made a clear decision that was best for him in what he was working on and what ultimately was best for society. But then feels this shame and this guilt afterwards. And that same exact thing happened when they detonated the atomic bomb. And so I just I felt like those words that came from her were very relevant, not only in that scene, but throughout the entire film.
You're so right about that,
Got
Sydney.
it.
And yeah, you're really right about that, Sydney. Sorry, Phil Vincent. Yeah.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Sydney, actually, I'm going to end this particular segment with you. We're going to talk about characters later, but right now, I just want to get your thoughts on Einstein. I think in this film, Einstein to me was one of my favorite characters. In every Christopher Nolan film, I went back and I thought about this. Every one of his films has that one character that kind of flows throughout the film. They're not that poignant where, they have to be on the top bill. But when you watch the film, it's just usually just one character that flows throughout. And I feel like Einstein was that character in this film. He wasn't very integral, but when he came in, he was very poignant. He was his messages were deliberate. So what I wanted to ask you, Sydney, was Einstein's character, how nonchalant he was about the actual race, the atomic bomb, but the science behind it. Could you speak on how it is that you can have an abundance of knowledge, of wisdom, of all these things that an average person just wishes they could have, but it's mundane to you. Einstein's brilliant. I think that's what makes him who he is. His brilliance is mundane to him, but he wants to explore so many different aspects of life. And to have this knowledge and have all this wisdom people want to draw from, and he actually drew from Oppenheimer himself. They were actually a pair in that sense where they both just wanted to get smarter and they both wanted to have not human decency, but just have a relevance to evolve humanity. I want you to speak on how you can have that character just flow through the movie and have a message when he doesn't have to be a main character.
Thank you for asking this because it's so important to have that sort of character. So, like, if we're looking at this from a personality lens, I would equate him to the masculine archetype of a sage. And actually, you see this in the feminine archetype too. So, for any character archetype, there's always this sage character. You could think of Gandalf. You could think of even Dumbledore. there's these characters there that are usually typically older men. They could be other demographics too, but the ones I just named were, and they're there for their wisdom to help move the main character's journey along. But I felt like Albert Einstein, I didn't expect him to be in this movie. First off, I didn't look up too much about this movie because I didn't want to be spoiled. But to see him, I mean, even in my notes, I was like, Einstein, because I don't think I've ever gotten any sort of fictional representation of Einstein. I've always just encountered him in very non-fictional ways. So to see him represented this way, I thought his character was fantastic. And I thought he was the perfect sage for Oppenheimer to bounce off of in moments of true need, of wisdom. And I thought he was a really great plot device when it came to that whole back and forth between Strauss and Oppenheimer too. But ultimately, you know, I think that the less the better there, because maybe if we got to see him all throughout the movie, the time he spent on screen probably wouldn't have been as poignant, like you said.
So
absolutely.
I wanted to, can I jump in here about the Einstein thing? I feel like it was Christopher Nolan meant for him not to be in it for the purpose of the fact that one moment at the end where he spoke to the fact that his time had already been done in the science. And so, you know, when Oppenheimer came along and was working on the Manhattan Project, you know, I think Daddy said somewhere last night where how, you know, Einstein said to him, remember, Oppenheimer said, oh no, we're not getting Einstein because he's basically too old. His time has passed. And so I think it was Christopher Nolan was looking for Einstein to represent for Oppenheimer. This is where we all get to where I am right now. We all get to where I am right now. So he was there to be that reminder in the time period that this cycle is an ever-ending cycle, that there's other Oppenheimers out there who have made and done things for their countries or have served in some capacity, and then their time is up and they may not be appreciated in the way that they thought they should be appreciated, but their time is up. And so, and he gave the picture not only from the sense of the science world, but also from his country. If you remember, he said, you know, you're still loyal to the country. How long you going to allow them to treat you like this? And he's like, you know, it's time, and maybe time for you to just say, you know, bump them, right? But he's like, that's what he had to do to his own country. That's why he was in America. So I looked at his role in being, he wasn't meant to be in the film that much, but his, you know, I guess, you know, when you speak, when you have something to say, it's really important. I just felt like his role was so important, but it was spoken to when it needed to be. So
if I can keep also too, you know, and it's so funny that we spend all this time on this amount of time on Albert Einstein. And, you know, if you look at the whole 3 hours, I think if you add it together, maybe it was 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But to me, it was really poignant. It was really poignant because also, too, Oppenheimer's nemesis here brought his own biases and he put his own inferiority complex into the whole picture. Because again, I don't know when they were in the Senate hearing and the handler was telling him different things, but at the end he said, you know, I know they were talking about me, and I know, he said, well, maybe they were talking about something more important. And come to find out, they were talking about something more important. They didn't even talk about him at all.
Yeah,
He put his
the end of humanity.
Right. He put his whole bias and his whole animus against Oppenheimer in his own head, and they weren't even talking about him. And I thought that was, you know, a lot of times, again, a little tidbit in Christopher Nolan's movies. I just thought about this. In Interstellar, one of the characters said, "Why?" No, they were asking, "Why do you want about? What do you want to? Why do you like space?" And she said, "Well, when you go to space and you were colonizing these new planets, it's all this freshness, new. We can leave all the old baggage behind." And someone in Interstellar said, "We're humans, and we're going to bring, no matter where we go, is it to another continent, to another planet, to another galaxy, we're going to still be humans, and we're going to be bringing all that baggage along with us. Yes, it's high-minded to think you would want to be better, but you are fooling yourself to think that, or don't look at that we're going to bring all that baggage with us." And again, he did the same thing here in this movie. So there's a lot of continuity with that too. And he did the same thing in Tenet also too, but I digress.
Yeah, he did the same
So
thing in Batman.
so
There's
with
a
this,
person in each film, yeah, that he did that in. Okay, so go ahead.
so with this, I feel like my favorite how well with Einstein, if you remember in the beginning of the film, Einstein walks right past Robert Downey Jr.'s character Strauss. He walks right past him and didn't say anything to him. And I think that Strauss took not only Einstein's brilliance and popularity, he took that as being he became envious of that, but also uh, added to that his jealousy of
Yep.
Oppenheimer as well. That Oppenheimer, this the creation of the bomb itself is one thing, but for the government, not only the government, but for the government to go to Oppenheimer to create this, and then for Oppenheimer to say that, I need this, 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 and this, and them to be able to get it, it created a jealousy towards Strauss. And I just loved how Einstein was able to play off of both men. So you see the brilliance of him able to just be subtle within his own mind, but you have all these people around you, and it's just like a normal everyday Tuesday, Einstein. And I just thought, again, to bring that all home, how he just flowed through both characters' lives, but also, if you think of in hindsight, how he flowed between the factual information and the fictional information that Nolan brings. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just he didn't just show up for the factual side or the fictional side. He was there in both, but the way he was integrated in both, I just thought was pure genius. I mean,
So what,
all right,
as your
so
co-host, we have a plug. Let's do a plug here, Sydney. I was thinking we're going to plug your type. So could you do a little plug for Raw Type? So for advertising purposes, go.
Sure. How about we talk about Aurora? Outside of Hot Nerd Network, I am a co-founder of Aurora Tights. So if any of you all have any little dancers, ice skaters, they don't have to be little, they can be college age too. We create kites in all shapes, sizes, and styles. And you can find us at auroratights.com.
also, guys, we also have a Hot Nerd Network social media, so make sure you like, comment, subscribe, repost. We want to get, if you have friends that you want to, you think it will be good to be on the show, reach out to us because we love to hear your input. So please, please, please like, comment, and share, subscribe. And like I said, if you want to be a part of the nerd crew, you want to be a future nerdy, just reach out to us. We'll love to have you on. So, also here at Hot Nerd Network, we like to have fun, especially being a Parker. We love to have fun. All right. So,
Right.
Papa and I created this next segment. It's going to be a little controversial. So, y'all make sure you're ready for this. But what I'm going to ask everybody to do is I want you to think of your top 3 Christopher Nolan films. Okay? Now, since we're doing Oppenheimer, you can include this in your top 3 if
Fair.
you so well choose. So, as my co-host, I'm gonna ask Pop. Pop, what is your top three Christopher Nolan films? Start from number three. So, what's your number three Christopher Nolan film?
Number three. So I cannot. I don't want to cheat. Not cheat's the wrong word. It'll be sloppy to say Oppenheimer. I haven't digested enough. I haven't digested Oppenheimer enough to just to put it in there. So number three, I'm gonna say Tenet. No. Back. I can't say. No. I was gonna say Tenet. See, it's so hard for number three. Okay, I got a lot of them. Okay, so Tenet number three.
He only has 2 movies.
I know, right.
They're all fire.
Goodness. Right, they're all fire. Number two, I'm gonna go with the Batman.
Which one?
Okay.
Oh, the latest one. What's the latest one called?
The third one.
It's just called The Batman, right? Wasn't it just called The Batman?
No. So the first one was Batman because second was
the last one. The last one was kind of raw. The Dark Knight. That's what, right? The Dark Knight. Right.
That was the Dark Knight. I like that. The Dark Knight Rises.
Because I love how dark it was. And the last
Rises was the second one.
And the last one, I gotta go with Interstellar. That's my top one. As a spoiler, it hit on so many different levels.
Is it because you?
Was there? You know what? Look, was there a video camera with me crying? Because I'm disputing that.
My mom said it, so it got to be true.
I'm disputing that. I don't know about that.
Don't be afraid of saying you love your daughter. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was a father-daughter movie. It really was. And I thought it was such a beautiful story about the love. I mean, he loved his son too, but I mean, I think it was just a beautiful connection. That's all I'm saying. It's a beautiful connection.
So, Mom, let's go with you. What's your top three Christopher Nolan films, starting with number three, and working your way up to your most favorite?
Okay. God, this is really kind of hard. I was looking. It's kind of hard.
It is. It is.
I think I still got to watch that Tenet again. I know you all are trying to get me to understand it, but I got to watch that again.
That's them too.
That was a lot. So that's not one of them. No. So I would say probably the Dark. Which one is the one with the young man who was the Joker? Is that
the second movie is The Dark Knight, and the third movie is The Dark Knight Rises.
That's
correct.
Right.
God, I like them all though. So I'm going to say that, but I'm going to say The Dark Knight because that was incredible. So words. So The Dark Knight is 3. I would say probably the movie that I think you were missing, Sydney, was The Prestige. People sleep on The Prestige, but it was such a good movie. They sleep on it. So I would say The Prestige was probably 2 for me, and then Interstellar was my top. I thought Interstellar I could watch over and over. It was such a beautiful story. It really was. Yeah. Plus, the world building in that one was pretty incredible. That was all about building a world. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
All right, Sid, let's hear it. So, what's your top 3, Sid? Starting with number 3.
Yeah, so it's a hard one for me because I really do love The Dark Knight, especially since, fun fact, when I lived in Chicago, I actually lived next to the building that they shot the first scene on. And when he's holding the Joker hat, the Joker mask, that's right next to my building. So that's just
it's right in front of.
It's right in front of. Yeah, you can see it.
Building. At that block, he was standing right in front of your building. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I would regularly see, because that was in the financial district, I would regularly see them line up the school buses the way they did. So that wasn't like fiction. Like they really do that often. They'll just line up the school buses. So it was really cool. That's a really cool movie. But I think the third one I'll have to put as my third is, where is it? Is it boom boom? No, I would probably have to put Inception as my third because while I love The Dark Knight, it's cool. I just feel like I know it. Like I know it enough. Like I feel like I could play that movie back in my head. Whereas Inception, every single time I watch that movie, I pick up something new. Like it's so good. It's so interesting. And like from the first, second, third, 11th time that you watch it, there's something new to take away from all the different characters. I love the ensemble cast. I love all the chase scenes. I just love the action. It just chef's kiss. So that's my third. My second would be Interstellar for all of the reasons that were said before. Off the straight that like it makes me cry. So you can say it makes you cry, Dad, but it definitely makes me cry, and I have to call you immediately after I watch it. And I can attest to the fact that every new person that gets to watch it, they cry too, because it's just so great. It's so great that love can reach through different dimensions. Like, it was amazing story.
And that right there, yeah. When he said that line, whew,
Yeah.
I didn't
What's the
cry.
line, baby? What's the line? What's the line? Go ahead and say the line, baby.
No, I didn't cry.
'Cause if he says the line, he's gonna cry. That's why I'm laughing. He
He's
won't
gonna
say the
tear
line.
up.
That's hilarious. That's so funny, actually. But yeah, no, Mom, it's crazy because before you even said it, I had looked up. I was like, oh, she was just definitely talking about The Prestige. The Prestige is my number one, and I have to actually
I'm not
shout
surprised.
out what's it called? I got introduced to that movie in college, actually, from one of my best friend's husbands. He was like, you love Christopher Nolan and you've never seen The Prestige? And he was like, you're gonna sit down right now. You know who I'm talking about, Justin. You're gonna sit down right now, you're gonna watch The Prestige. And when I tell you after that, I always watch it. Like sometimes I'll just throw that movie on because it is such a mind blower. Like I'm not gonna spoil it right now for anybody who hasn't seen The Prestige because it's not like one of his. It's a popular one for those who know it, but I don't think it's as big as
Wasn't a blockbuster or something like that. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it
Right.
is so layered. There are so many layers to that movie. We could spend the whole time just dissecting that. And I think that's what Christopher Nolan is so good. He's so good at inserting all of these layers into his movie, but still having an ending message that is so important to take away from that. And sometimes movies, they can look pretty, they can do a lot of things. Check out the Barbie review. Shout out the Barbie review that is going to drop as well. We talk about this. But where's the ending message? Christopher Nolan never forgets it. He never forgets it.
So
or he lets you come up with your own indie message too. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
and that's where I'm actually going to get to. So I consider myself, if there was one director that I will have to do my life story or anything like that, it would be Christopher Nolan. I just love Christopher Nolan. He is brilliant in bringing emotion out of a situation that you wouldn't normally get an emotional response out of. He's able to give you visual pictures of things that you never would have thought about before. So I love everything about him. But that's besides the point. My top three, number three would definitely be Tenet, just because I think the way Tenet was built, how you can watch the film from start to finish or from finish to start, and it's completely synonymous with each other. I think that is just pure brilliant. My mom didn't get it. That's just because
I
it was
didn't
the
either.
first time we watched
I'm
it.
going to keep watching it. I'm going to get it.
Every time, guys, every time we watch this movie as a family, my mom guarantees falls asleep. It never fails. It never ever fails.
I love it.
It was even worse is she knows when she goes to sleep, she knows what's happening in the film.
Right.
It's just that she just doesn't get it. It's
The car
not
just blew up.
comprehensible to her at all.
They just shot somebody.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, what was that?
That's her.
So Tenet is my number three. Number two and number one for me, it's a 1A, 1B. So if it's any type of a day for me, it's a flip of the coin. But I will go Inception #2, just
Okay.
because of the world building aspect of the film, and like Pop was saying earlier, how it's a cliffhanger at the end, but if you really watch Inception, it's not a cliffhanger. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I agree.
At the end
I agree.
at the end of Inception, the biggest, what if, this is a spoiler show. So if you haven't seen Inception, please go watch, stop this, go back and watch it, then come back. But at the end of Inception, Nolan gives us the kind of thought process of, is he still dreaming? Is he not? But if you really watch the film, the question is answered. So I'm just going to leave that there.
Oh, it is? I
but
need
my
to go
number
back and
one-
rewatch it then.
It is.
It's
It
answered.
is.
It is.
It's
It
answered
is.
because I have to be honest
It
with
is
you.
answered.
That's the thing that I don't like about Christopher Nolan's, some of his movies is that I'm like, well, what happened? I don't want to think. Can you just tell me what the answer is? So but if you say that it's there and it's answered, then I'll have to go watch it again. Yeah.
I'll bring you up to date off the air, Mom. I'll bring you up to date.
Okay.
But number one for me, this is our first time. This is everybody's first time with the first word. I'm a huge Joker fan. Joker is my favorite character, fictional character of all time. But The Dark Knight is my number one film of all time for Christopher Nolan. For him to get the performance out of Christian Bale that he did, but not even just Christian Bale, but from the performance that he got from Heath Ledger, the performance that he got from just all parties involved. It's just, it really is. Okay, so when as a kid, watching Batman the Animated Series, watching all these cartoon shows of the 90s, you get a certain aspect of the Joker, of what the Joker is. You think of him as a comedic, 30-minute problem for Batman, whereas when you watch The Dark Knight, he becomes not only a problem, but he becomes the solution for Batman. And to put that into a film is amazing. To have a character that is aloof, that he is somewhat likable. He's not likable in the cartoon, but when you watch The Dark Knight, he's actually kind of admired. You kind of understand why he is the way that he is, and
that's because you like the Joker.
I do love the Joker, but also I just love the aspect of how Nolan plays off the fact that the only person that can bring the Joker salvation is Batman, and the only person that can bring Batman salvation was the Joker, and I just thought to have that kind of chemistry on film, it's monumental to me. But this film, again, we're going to get into characters later, but how he was able to bring all these stars into this one film, just brilliant.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we're going to bring that in later.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the stars into Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Are you talking about into Oppenheimer?
Yes.
And he does that in every film.
He does.
Think he brings stars into every film. I don't think that's surprising to me. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
But see, okay, so if you look at the star power in Oppenheimer, and then you look at the star power in any of his other movies, the level of commitment that he gets from his stars, I mean, it's his roster from Oppenheimer is humongous from top to bottom. It's full of stars, but their roles can be so small. And you see it because we were watching it last night, and I was like, hold on, is that person or is that that guy? And you're like, oh my goodness, it is. And you would have never, they're not in the top billing. They're not in all of the trailers or commercials or anything like that. They're just naturally who Christopher Nolan sees in this film as that character. And I just think that's brilliant.
Kind of like what Oppenheimer did
So, Pop.
when he brought all those scientists in. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yes,
Mhm.
So, Pop, go ahead and bring us into our next segment.
Okay, well, next segment is your thoughts and feelings about the film. Um, Mom, I'll let you go first. You know, let's get your thoughts and feelings about the film. How did it make you feel? Your biggest takeaway, your favorite characters, some symbolisms. You can touch on all those, or free flow is where you feel. So, or as you feel. So, go for it.
Um, I guess my favorite character was Kitty. That was the wife, right? I loved Kitty because of I could relate to her. But I mean, I liked all the characters. What can I say? I thought Oppenheimer was amazing. The young man who plays Oppenheimer, he must have lost a lot of weight for that role, though. He was
Yeah,
really,
he
really
was skinny,
tiny.
mini.
And
Yeah.
I guess Oppenheimer was a really small man, so I hope he got some food afterwards and he's eating and being a little bit more healthier. But I think he really fit into the role. I would say one of my favorite scenes. I loved the sound. I will always love sound. I think the sound was so poignant in helping you understand the moment, especially in the scenes when it dealt with the bombs, when they were showing about the bombing or building the bombs or doing the testing of the bombs, or even when
Yeah.
he was in those different when they did the testimonies or when he was in that room, how they would change the lighting and then the sound and then how the room would shake to represent something, but you know that that's not what was really happening, and then it would just go still. It's like you were still. I guess it's the same effect as you would have had with the color changing from black and white to color. Um, I I loved learning about. I thought of my dad a lot in this movie. I know it's weird because he wasn't a scientist, but I thought of him because of the science of it and how it's the details. It's all of the things that and how your brain works. The incredible way that these men's brains worked, but also that it wasn't just men. They actually
Oh yeah.
did highlight that there were women scientists who were a part of this team, who came
Yeah.
in, who had thoughts. They weren't. I love that scene where she was like, "They're telling me that I don't know how to type fast enough," and he's like, "Well, I tell you what, you need to go do something scientific or something," because she really was a scientist.
Right.
She's like,
Well,
"I guess I didn't learn that when I was
Right.
at Harvard or something." Yeah.
right. When she was at MIT. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, when she's at MIT.
Right.
So I just thought, I mean, the film, it was amazing. I thought I could connect with it. It was the first time where I could connect from the beginning to the end, the entire film, without having to guess or sit
Didn't
here
fall
and think
asleep.
through. Yeah, and I didn't fall asleep. But no, I thought very well done. Bravo to Christopher Nolan. Bravo to all of the people who were in it, because every single one of them, from Matt Damon, you could see all of the, of course, Christopher definitely takes people from all his different films. I mean, I was like, oh yeah, what's the guy who's Matt Damon's best friend? I can't think of his name right now. Married to J-Lo, can't think of his name, but his brother
Ben
was in the
Affleck.
film.
Ben
Ben
Affleck,
Affleck. Casey Affleck was in the film. Just kind of seeing all the different sort of people across history. It was like a history of Christopher Nolan's films, but very well done.
Okay.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
Phil, I'm gonna go to you. Same question. Um, how did the film make you feel? The biggest takeaway, your favorite characters, and any symbolism. Again, free flow if you feel like it, or just pick any of those topics.
Favorite character had to be Oppenheimer, but he was my favorite for a different reason. So,
Okay.
since I do love Christopher Nolan films, I first saw him in so like Mom said, to see the actors,
Yeah.
different actors in the film, it kind of made me feel a certain type of way. But Oppenheimer himself, I forgot the young man's name.
Murphy.
What's his name? It's Cullen
Murphy.
Murphy.
Colin Murphy.
Cullen Murphy. He So I first got introduced from him from Batman. He played Scarecrow in Batman Begins. So
well, back up. Stop you real quick. He actually played an Interception too.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he played a couple.
Yeah, remember, he was the son. He was the target of them going into different layers. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
He was. No, you're fine. So, but him specifically, I was first introduced to him through Christopher Nolan in Batman Begins. And so to see his maturation process to be somewhat, because he did play the Scarecrow, but the Scarecrow wasn't the biggest protagonist in that movie. That would have been Ra's al Ghul. So to see him be that protagonist in that movie on a smaller scale to this point where Nolan brought him in and said, hey, you're the guy. And for him to be able to carry that mantle, it blew my mind. Because like I said, me seeing him as a teenager in Batman Begins to now seeing him in Oppenheimer at me as being a grown man, it's just mind blowing to see his maturation process. And then not only that, but I was also made aware by my girlfriend last night that he's actually in a movie in a show called Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
Oh God, you haven't seen that? You haven't seen that film?
I haven't seen Peaky Blinders.
Oh my goodness, dude! Oh wow. Yeah, go back and Peaky Blinders got him ready for this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but so to see his maturation process over the year, I thought that was a joy for him to actually be on a blockbuster as the guy in a blockbuster. I thought that was too cool, and he handled that pressure extremely well.
Great. Yeah.
So that was my favorite character. My biggest takeaway and how I felt about it were synonymous, because my biggest takeaway was Nolan has done it again. But this time he's taken something that's historically factual and made it into something very intriguing. And not only that, but gave some kind of tangible effect to something that some of us will never have any kind of semblance over. I didn't grow up in the World War II era. I didn't grow up in, the Cold War era, but I walked away feeling empathetic for the victims of Hiroshima, the victims of Nagasaki, how the government tests the bombs and stuff on remote destinations, but it has lingering effects afterwards.
Right.
But this is the Earth is our home. This is our planet, and we are intentionally causing harm to it just to harm ourselves as in humanity. So that is and he played, and Oppenheimer played off of that at the end of it with Einstein's help. Yes, we have these great feats. We can detach and reattach atoms together to have these effects, but in the end, we're only causing the human race. We're only causing ourselves harm. So to get that message across, I mean, it was just brilliant. It was just brilliant.
Okay, well, actually, I do. Again, I'm sorry to interrupt you because you were hitting on so many points, some excellent points. And so, Ms. Hot Nerd herself, founder and creator, what's the same thing, your final thoughts, feelings about the movie? How do you feel about it? Any big takeaways? Your favorite characters? Any symbolisms there, or all the above, or go for
it? Thank you. Yeah, no, I'll take it from like my initial thoughts to plug into what Bob was saying. Just Christopher Nolan and his team are true filmmakers. Like these movies are just easy to digest and eat up. The sound, the visuals. I mean, even in the beginning when just the colors, like that color of that green apple against that stark brown and blue space.
Yes.
It's just, they're very intentional about the way something looks and it feels. And the music, when they compared the symbolism of science to music to these visions that he would
Yes.
have of otherworldly things. Just the beginning pacing was so fast, but so it felt like a fever dream. It was super cool. So I really like that. I love the introduction of Jean as that metaphorical character. I would say that she was probably my favorite character throughout the film. I love that me and my like personality nerds, we always call each other Jungian gangs. And they called that out as far as Carl Jung being a psychologist that she was very much into. And I was in my notes, I was like, Jungian gang? Like she really likes Carl Jung too, just from a psychology standpoint. And so much of personality is built off of his theories. But she was just she had the same demons. Like they were so similar. Like they were just so similar. She had the same demons as he did, but she also had her own, which prevented her from being, you know, a part of his orbit. And I really thought that it was, like I said before, using her as a metaphor for guilt was the biggest symbolism I took away from the film, was this idea of guilt and anxiety. And as I was going through the film, trying to type Oppenheimer himself, personality type Oppenheimer, I was trying to think of his Enneagram. And as I've told you all, and anybody who's familiar with Enneagram, there's 3 different triads, and they all deal with 3 different emotional issues. The body triad deals with anger. The heart triad deals with shame. The mind triad deals with fear. And it was so clear throughout the entire film that this was the struggle. Daddy, you even picked up on that too. Like, he struggled with fear, anxiety, guilt, shame. He struggled with all of the emotions, but especially that anxiety was felt through the shaking and the drumming of the beat. Like, that would just enter into certain scenes, and that symbolism was felt. Another symbol that I wanted to ask y'all about is the Manhattan Project. Does that have anything to do with Watchmen?
Somewhat. I mean, very, very. So the Watch. Okay, which Watchmen are you talking about? The Watchmen, the movie, the Watchmen, the HBO special. Which Watchmen are you talking about?
You know,
Mr. Manhattan. Because technically, Mr. Manhattan was a scientist on the Manhattan Project.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I didn't connect that. Good catch, Sydney. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for connecting the fact that he was called Mr. Manhattan. That was why I thought about Watchmen. I was just like, why am I thinking about Watchmen right now? Because of the fact that Mr. Manhattan, wasn't he supposed to be a symbol of an atomic bomb?
Well, you know what? Hold on. Let's make sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, that was part of his. Let's make sure we make sure we're factual. So, Mr.
So
look that up.
Go ahead. So while Papa's looking that up, Mr. Manhattan, actually, that is where that name came from. So Mr. Manhattan, the accident that gave Mr. Manhattan his powers, they were actually splitting atoms. He went into he left his lunch. He left his lunch inside. No, he left a bracelet inside the room, and the door closed behind him. And the machine that they were creating, it rips atoms apart, and it ripped all his atoms apart, but it put them back together. But yes, that is where the term Mr. Manhattan came from.
But it's actually Dr. I think it's Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan.
A little bit of both. Dr. Mr. Yeah, Dr. Manhattan. Yep. Mm-hmm.
John
So Pop, what's your...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead.
So me... Why does it make sense? So, Sydney, were you finished? Were you finished yours?
Oh, I just have one last thing where it was
go ahead.
his symbolism as a martyr was also very much felt. Like, he just, and his wife, it was both a blessing and a curse. He was willing to be a martyr for science, just pushing science forward. But also, he wound up being a martyr for like the government as well too. And they didn't want him to be that way. I know that Strauss didn't want him to be pictured that way, but he wound up being it in general. That's why I felt like he even took that case at the end. So because he knew it wasn't going to be instant gratification. Yes, they're going to take my security clearance away. Yes, my reputation might be ruined in the moment, but later on, and they showed that at the very ending scene, like later on, they will honor what he stood for at the very end. But yeah, that those were all my takeaways. I think like my favorite quote last week: "They need us until they don't. They need us until they don't." I was like,
well, you know what? So that actually segues into me. That metaphor, they need us until they don't. My favorite character is Robert Downey Jr.'s Louis Strauss. Is it Strauss?
You love
Strauss.
I love a villain, but see what he symbolizes when he went at the end. When he went on that tirade about power. Power is not seen. That's what makes power so powerful. And another line is, why stick the knife when you could use somebody else to stick the knife for you? So, Robert Downey Jr. character, Louis Strauss's character, to me was my most favorite character. I love it. Like I said, I do like a good villain, and it's not so. And going back to Phil, what you asked me at the beginning about the black and white, it wasn't the classic villain towards the end. As okay, Christopher's going to give you the villain, you're going to hate him because at the beginning, Robert Downey Jr.'s character was likable. You didn't get to me. I didn't get a villain vibe at the very beginning. It wasn't so obvious, but then it's kind of creeped up on you, like, oh my goodness, Robert is okay. Robert again. He's typecast, not typecast, but we know him as Iron Man. American symbolism for doing good for the universe. To see him now in this role of being a bad guy kind of at least lulled me in. My spidey senses wasn't tingling that soon. So again, I like his character for that. One of my biggest takeaways. Do you guys remember at the end when they were all those people? At the end, when they hosted Oppenheimer on his shoulder and they were lifting him up after the bomb was successful, and in the background was the American flag, and all these immigrants. See, all these immigrants, as you said before, because remember he started had that one student in his class. He started everyone on this new level of quantum theory and thinking. America didn't have it. So what America does best that no one else does was like, give me you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor. This big melting pot. So we use this whole melting pot of all these scientists, these brilliant people, and they hoisted this New York City boy on their shoulders, and in the background had this flag waving. I'm like, oh, that was really powerful. I don't know. Do you guys remember that scene? Do you remember that scene?
I remember him. Yeah, I didn't remember the flag, but I remembered him being on the shoulders. Yeah,
and that kind of, and as I'll end up, that goes towards the symbolism portion of it. Again, well, actually, let me back up. Let me take one step back. Again, like you said, the raw power is not seen. Power is played behind the scenes. That's the real power of brokers. Because they don't want to be seen. They just want to be pulling the levers. And again, like you said, Sydney, they like you until they don't. And one of the things Phil and I were talking about, I was fortunate that I had a family member who was in government who told me, people will tell you to do bad things until they don't need you no more. And as you saw, that way we needed this atomic bomb, but he didn't get along, and so they crushed him for it at the end because his convictions, got to him. I did it because I'm a patriot, but then they hammered him to say, well, we shouldn't go no further. When he was developing H-bomb. So I kind of like that they need you till they don't, and if you remember that as life lessons as you're growing up, I think that will serve you well. So that's it for me.
So, unfortunately, guys, this is the conclusion of the first word in Hot Nerd Network. This is the Oppenheimer edition. But before we go, I want to get just a couple of closing remarks from everybody. So, something regarding this film that you just want to leave the people with that either resonated with you, a line that, stuck with you, or something about the film that you just want people to know. Mom, why don't you start?
One of the things I wanted to make sure we covered for Levinson was the song. You had mentioned last night that there was a song that was played in every Christopher Nolan movie. I don't know if we touched that.
What is that?
Can you? Was that? Am I taking away from what you were going to say?
You are.
Okay,
That's a mother. That's a mother,
right? I remember,
I swear,
but that's okay.
man.
You saved that for you. I know. You saved that for you. But I would say the film. I thought it was very historical, and I love the fact that he took something that was so poignant to bring it to today's time. So you all, as a younger generation, even me, from a generation that didn't even was effective, wasn't alive when it actually was used. I think it's important that we remember that history. So I appreciate Christopher Nolan actually bringing something to light, showing us the people in the background who actually make things happen that you don't often hear people talking about. So that's my statement about the movie.
Love that.
Sydney, where you go? So give me something that you want the people to know, you want about the film. Just give us something to close out by.
Sure, yeah. Well, definitely keep eyes out. I'm going to try to do some character analyses from those personality system perspectives, because there was a lot going on here from a character. Nolan's just so good at having very believable characters, and all of these actors and actresses are big names, big faces, but it really felt like they melted into their characters, man. Like I was questioning the whole time, is that Florence Pugh who was playing Jean? And then I was like, okay, yeah, that is Florence Pugh. I was like, Emily Blunt, I know that you under there, but you do not look like Emily Blunt. You look like Kitty. That's who you are right now. Okay. Yes.
Right.
He just is always hitting that. And so just, I would say, look out for that. And that's what Christopher Nolan's always going to be good for. The last thing is that, did you notice, brother, this is for you, with your Tenet vibes, for anybody who loves Memento, Christopher Nolan's always playing with timeline in his movies. And I like that the end, he ended in the middle. It ended at the scene with that we met Albert Einstein in, which was basically the middle. So I was like, okay, that was a nice little Christopher Nolan signature at the end there. So, yeah.
It was definitely a nice little nugget. Absolutely right. Pop, give me something to close out by.
So, also, who's one of my favorite actors is Gary Oldman, and Gary Oldman's portrayal of Truman. When he said, "Get that sissy out of here! Don't have him come back no more."
I realized that was Gary Oldman.
I cracked up in the movie. See, moviegoers, I'm one of those movie people. I try to be quiet. I don't want to disrupt anyone else to distract from that movie experience. But when Truman said, and Gary Oldman has always been one of my favorite actors, when he said, "Get that sissy out of here."
Don't bring him back.
Don't bring him back
in here.
Oh my goodness, you talking about that? So that was that was my little sleeper there.
Perfect.
You, brother?
Okay, so Mom kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but
I didn't say anything.
So, I implore everybody to, a part of our family. We are big music goers. We're very, very, we're big into music. We're a very eclectic group. We're not handicapped to just one specific genre. But a thing I love about Christopher Nolan is that he's able to transfer, he's able to merge audio and visual. So the nugget that I had was that he used the same composer for the sound, for the soundtrack, for the score, for the score of the movie, Mr. Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer did almost
Interstellar.
He did almost all his film, particularly Interstellar. But again, I'm a huge Batman fan. So one of the songs from the score of Batman Beginnings is actually in this film. So if you remember back in Batman Beginnings, when Batman is looking over Gotham, over the top of one of the buildings, that same song is played in this film. So
I'm about to go back and look at that.
Is that
me too?
A lot of songs that Zimmer has done is repeated in a lot of Christopher Nolan's films. So he uses the same composer, but different aspects of different songs are used in all his films. So I just thought that was a very, very nice little nugget. When I was watching the film, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, I know that song from somewhere. And I just went back into my database and my mind, and I'm like, that came from Batman Beginnings. So
wow.
Nice. My friends and I, we nerd out over music, over sounds. So just to have that, the raw emotion that you just get from just the sound, I just thought was amazing as well.
Yes. It's so crazy.
Like
the same for me. Yes.
So again, this is the end of the first word. This is the Oppenheimer review for Hot Nerd Network. Again, I'm your host, Philip V, with my co-host, Philip C, and our two guest hosts, the ladies of the Parker family, my mom, Cheryl, and Miss Boss Lady herself, Cindy Parker. Thank you guys so much.
Boss Lady, that's right.
Being a part. I had a good time. We must do this again. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment. Come back, share. We have the Barbie podcast, or the Barbie review coming soon, if it's not out already by this time. And just look out for most of our other projects as well.
Cool. Thank you.
That was good, man.